What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Krazy4Komps RC. I'm Tim. Welcome back to my channel. If you're a first time watcher, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss future videos. So it's kind of the normal thing here to have quite a few builds in progress. You guys don't always get to see all of those, but I've got a couple of hard body builds in progress. Just kind of waiting on humidity to drop a little bit, weather to get a little more favorable for painting those and getting those wrapped up. But in order to do some building here inside in the air conditioning in steamy Georgia, I went ahead and ordered a bunch of parts, a bunch of components I need in order to kind of move toward my next competition. Don't know exactly when that's going to be. I would really like to go to East Coast Championships in 2024. Usually that's in kind of the late springtime, early summer. But I don't know if my schedule is going to allow that yet. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to build trucks. Obviously, those Sorka rules are a living rule set. They could change. I'm not too worried about them. The way that they're formatted now, changing too much between now or when I get these trucks done, especially the bodies. If you're not familiar, there's quite a few constrictions on body dimensions and sizes and things like that. It's all about meeting, the rectangle and meeting certain sizes and certain parts of the body. So my first competition was this year at East Coast Championships, and that was in May. Had a great time. I learned a bunch. I'm gonna go ahead and link that playlist up here. And I don't claim to be an expert. It's not a beginner's guide to comps. Really, what it is like a beginner's experience in comps. And at the end, I kind of did key takeaways from a competition from a first-timer's perspective. And I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna reflect on that. I'm gonna make sure I'm heeding my warnings. But that's one reason I wanna get these trucks built now versus kind of scrambling at the end and not having drive time with them. So I'm gonna drive them. I'm not gonna worry about scaling them out, getting max points right now. Just make sure they're performing, make sure I get used to driving them, make sure the tires are nice and broken in, things like that, get all the kinks worked out, and then, try to point them out later whenever I do decide to pick a comp to go compete at and get some experience, have some fun. So without further ado, let's get started. What is this gonna look like? I don't have a table full of parts in front of me. So, this is kind of the intro to, we'll call it season 2 of Krazy4Komps. And what we're gonna start with is I actually am gonna tear down my last year's Class 2 blue cliffhanger. So this episode officially kicks off season 2 of Krazy4Komps, and we're kind of planning further out. Hopefully this won't be the only thing consuming my channel, leading up into winter and into the spring. But I would like to sprinkle it in here and there as I get trucks built, get some run time, get some experience, do some tuning, and then eventually get them pointed out or as close as possible and run all 3 classes at my next competition. So this is last year's Class 2. The truck did really well. Real quick recap. So that playlist I linked earlier kind of walks you through what all went into this. I will link the specific video where I go into detail about basically every single part that goes onto this. But this is a VS410 Phoenix Portal kit. At least it started out as that. I ended up getting the Artful Dodgers carbon fiber chassis conversion kit. That's a flat rail carbon fiber chassis kit that utilizes the VFD twin. You can run a regular VFD in it as well. It's got a lay down servo up front. It comes with all the mounts to run a winch, and it does utilize those F10 portal axles, and you can see those here. I'm running some bent titanium links from Hardcore RC. I've got some DravTech shocks on here. We've got some Krupp Carbon Works titanium bumpers. Keeping the weight minimal was kind of the overall goal with this. Obviously it's a Phoenix transmission, the VFD twin. It's a very heavy transmission. This is running a 10 shooter from Holmes Hobby, which is a 10 pole censored brushless motor, Mamba Micro X2. It's got a Reefs 300 IS internal spool winch. It's got an NSDRC RS 800 V2, real powerful. Run 4S on this thing. And it's got a few other goodies here and there. We're running 475 Hyraxes and G8. Got some Vanquish wheels on here. This ended up being, I think, about a 35-point truck, if I remember right. So came up short of that 50. First competition ever. Never competed in anything, let alone Sorka, and ended up kind of scoring mid-pack, lower mid-pack. I think it was like 47 out of 65 or something, which I was really happy with. I beat some people who had multiple competitions under their belt, and really, it's all because of the truck. It is more capable than my driving skill, but I do like it. I would recommend the Artful Dodger setup, but I don't think it's, you know, the absolute best. I think that laydown servo kind of leaves a little to be desired with the steering geometry. A traditional stand-up servo, if you can accommodate it with your body, is a lot better. And you kind of get some inherent bump steer with this setup. So we made it work. We made it work as good as possible. I did do another local competition with this since ECC, and didn't film it at all, but it actually did really well. Just a little bit of steering tuning. But obviously building is part of the fun, or most of the fun, depending on who you are. So we're gonna tear this down a little bit. We're gonna rob some stuff out of it because it's perfectly good. It's got you know, maybe an hour to 2 hours of runtime on it, and we're gonna utilize those electronics in this coming year's builds. And but I do have some electronics that are gonna go back into this. This will probably be kind of my backup, just in case something happens. If I'm going to a local event or something and somebody wants to try to drive a way more capable truck, I may set this up on another radio as well and let them play around with it a little bit, maybe run a course with it, just to kind of show the difference between a, you know, a bone stock SCX10 or a TRX4 or even an Element versus something like this. We're gonna take the tires from it too, because these are not even broken in yet, but they're closer than a brand new set would be. No reason to buy a brand new set. The foams in here are still good. So we're gonna take the motor, we're gonna take the ESC, we're gonna take the servo out. I might end up taking the shocks as well. We'll see. Definitely gonna take these titanium bumpers off. Really like these bumpers, they're really light. We're gonna take the roof rack. I know that the new rules, you have to have a little bit more standoff from the roof to get points for that, but that's okay. We'll probably just go ahead and rob the scale accessories off, because most likely this thing will not compete in a Sorka event, at least not at the most competitive level. But I'm gonna set this aside. We'll get to working on this here in a bit, but before we go, I'm gonna show you guys another vehicle that's gonna get sacrificed for this upcoming competition builds. All right, so you guys probably, most of you probably know, based on the livery, what you're looking at. This is a Capra from Axial. This is the 4-wheel steer version. I actually really like this. So this is hardly an Axial anymore. It is running the stock axles, obviously the stock cage, but besides that, pretty much all aftermarket or modified. I am running an aftermarket skid that accommodates a 3-gear style transmission, and I am running a Vanquish 3-gear inside of this. I'm also running a Hobbywing Fusion Pro 2300 3S 2-in-1 combo. Really smooth, really simple. I highly recommend those for these Capras because space is at a premium underneath this cage, especially if you want to keep the interior. So it allows really good slow speed. You don't get real good wheel speed out of this, but my Capras aren't really like trailing rigs. I like them for really technical stuff anyway, so I'm not too worried about it. I probably could do some overdrive in the axles to get the speed up, but I really enjoyed driving this. It's really fun practicing 4-wheel steer. It's my only 4-wheel steer vehicle, but it doesn't get driven quite enough, and I really need the axles off of it. So we're gonna do some sacrificing on it. I might look to do some sort of conversion and make like a little 1.9 rock bouncer, but that's gonna be in the future. But between this and last year's C2, I've got a bunch of teardown to do. So basically, like I said, what I really want is the axles off of this. So I'll just leave the links on the axles. I'll leave the drive shafts connected. But I definitely wanna pull the transmission. I wanna take the motor off of that because I'm actually gonna use that Fusion Pro to go into last year's C2. Just a nice, smooth, brushless system. Not quite as nice as what's in there, but those Fusion Pros do fit in a VFD twin with minor shaving on one of the link mounts. Not a big deal. So I'm gonna get to wrenching. We're gonna come back. There's probably gonna be a pile of parts. I'm gonna have a bunch of work to do left, but I'll see you guys on the other side. Alright guys, we were back. You guys saw some time lapse. Definitely some time lapse you guys didn't see in there. Got a bunch of wrenching done. Same day actually, just way later. Everyone's asleep. And yeah, just wanted to kind of wrap up the video and show you guys what kind of progress I made. So this is the less than exciting part for some, because you don't get to see kind of an end finished product. But this is actually really exciting to me. I'm a parts hoarder. I love having spare parts. As soon as I see spare electronics or axles or transmissions, I start thinking, what's the next project? So this is all that remains of our four-wheel steer Capra, essentially. You guys saw a bunch of the parts, the shocks, the axles, electronics. This is all we got left. So we got the cage. I'm gonna save this. Keep it around. I got a idea, potentially a 1.9 rock bouncer, kind of just fast little trail basher buggy. Probably put the stock transmission back in it. Got to find some axles, but definitely want to keep this around. Great looking cage, nice and light, but most of the progress was made on the previous C2 you guys have seen here on the channel. All right, so we got the C2 mostly fixed back up. A couple things I still want to take off of it, some scale accessories, this roof rack here. I got to pull the interior in order to do that. This is running a bomber interior with kind of a extension rear shelf, just some Lexan that I cut up to put in there. Obviously we're running no bumpers. I might make some bumpers. Gonna kind of try to figure out what I want to do with this exactly, whether it's going to be kind of a backup C2 truck. I know how it drives. It drives really well, nice and planted, really good front weight bias, almost exactly 60-40, 50-50 left to right. So the truck handles really well. Just kind of wanted a new build, try something out. But I'll pop the body off. I'll show you guys what I got going on inside. Haven't cleaned up any wiring, haven't really done any wiring, but for the most part, everything is in here. All right, so we got the body off. You may notice, a keen eye would notice that my tires have changed. So I pulled these old Hyraxes. They were actually brand new before ECC off of this. So got the foams in there. I went ahead and labeled them with a Sharpie on the inside, which were front, which were rear, just so I don't have to sit there and try to figure out foam density or actually look at the color of the outer ring. They're the dual stages from Crawler Innovations. So they're ready to go. Just gotta figure out what wheels I'm gonna run on C2, and that'll ultimately kind of depend on my paint scheme, right? So what did we do? We pulled the winch out, we pulled the steering servo out, and we pulled the ESC and the motor out. The radio is still sitting in here, and that's pretty much all that remains for as far as electronics go. So I ended up putting the Fusion Pro out of the Capra 4-wheel steer into this truck. I forgot that this is running the Artful Dodgers skid, not the Vanquish skid. So sorry about that. So I didn't have to do any trimming. Fit right in there. Got my gear mesh set. Truck feels pretty good. VFDs are loud transmissions, but I actually had a spare Reefs 777 that I'd kind of forgotten about. So that's a 3S capable servo. Really good servo, really strong, direct power, so you get all the benefits, the speed, the power of that, and you don't have to worry about your BEC being able to handle it. So we're gonna run that. The nice thing about Reefs is they actually sell the balance plug adapters. So this Fusion Pro obviously comes pre-soldered with an XT60. Now, I may do some shortening, and I may go ahead and throw a JST on here if I do that. But for the time being, I can just run off the balance plug on my 3S batteries and I'll be ready to go. The last thing I did put in here is, because I do want this to be a competition-oriented vehicle, I threw in one of these Boom Racing muscle winches. I've had this for a while. It does work. I hooked it up to a servo tester and used that to wind the winch line. Put some new winch line on there from RC 4-wheel drive. I don't think it's the best stuff, but I think it's going to be good enough for this truck. Probably not going to see a ton of use. Wasn't able to get the winch exactly oriented how I wanted in the chassis, so unfortunately we do have a little bit more weight hanging outside the rails than we did previously. But on the plus side, we don't have an ESC mounted on these sliders, so probably kind of counteracts some of that, you know, center balance, perfect left to right balance that we're going to have. So really all we have on the actual sliders is going to be this radio receiver here, and then my little 3S pack's going to go on this side. Little 650 3S pack from Genzace. Those work really well. But yeah, other than that, we're still running these orange wheels. They fit the body really well, and I just got to figure out some bumpers and pull the last few things off the body, a little bit of wiring, and this thing's going to be ready to go. No intention of driving this in the near future, so it might be a little while before you guys see this thing get wrapped up, but I'm excited. Originally I was kind of thinking about selling this, but I like the idea of keeping it around. But this was a long episode. I really appreciate you guys hanging in there, for those of you that did. So on the next episode, hopefully we'll start making some progress on our new Class 2, possibly our Class 3. Class 1, I still got some parts I need to get, specifically transmission, skid plate, but I do have the axles and the chassis rails already lined up for that, as well as most of the electronics. So just a few more things to buy and figure out a body as well for that, and we'll be off to the races and have all 3 classes of competition vehicles. So before you go, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. Leave a comment, let me know what you think. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.